Not many.
We are streaming.
Oh, it's coming quickly. That's okay, though.
So I called him back and I told him that I don't have.
If that's my big problem, I'm in good shape, right?
Anymore, but I might be able to find somebody, if, you know, if he lets me know what exactly today.
They're doing great. In fact, that's where Marion was going when I left. I'm going over there. I'm glad you are. A little jealous, but I'm okay.
It's short notice.
Yeah, he just called me yesterday with it, so.
How's your dad doing, right? Good?
The horse died.
He just said they.
Hey, there's a stranger. Hi, Mary Alice Moran. Great, how are you?
He was away for about 5 days.
That's good. Nice to see you.
He was
You always look the same, Mary Alice. You look wonderful. You look the same.
On application or anything?
Well, hey, we gotta compliment each other. Who else is gonna compliment us, right?
2 weeks.
That's what I always say. Me and Mary, I said, we gotta compliment each other, Marion.
We're supposed to go this weekend, one weekend.
But I meant,
And they bet that we were
you look the same.
Yeah, good. So, we're, you know, we're talking whether or not, we may still go, you know.
The mics are on, right?
Mics are on. We'll be live streaming.
We are live streaming.
We are live streaming. Did you want me to check on my computer?
You can't do, wait a shit.
Yeah, let me check. Angela, no. Oh, you made the run.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, I do that. Thank you. Oh, Fred?
Yeah.
Good. Oh, okay. Hello, hello.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah, I did, after last
Commenting
meeting.
about the chairs.
I put each individual one. Okay. Because Fred came through loud and clear. I watched part of the meeting.
From hers.
And so I matched with Mary. Mary was coming through very clearly.
It seemed like when you talked into the mic, I think.
Okay,
Okay, now
Projected.
where I am I set to use this thing trying?
yes.
Okay, thanks. We're gonna test it out. If I put it in the right one.
Yep.
I'm putting it in there.
Yeah.
Somebody says they
Did
can't
that
hear
button
us,
work?
so no, it's my fault now.
You take the bulbs out?
Get to my. Okay. Ready?
Lon, we needed you at home to tell us whether or not we can hear everything.
Milan, you're not paying attention.
You're our steady
okay.
at home to tell us if you can hear.
Whenever you're ready, Angela, let me know.
I'm ready. Go, go, go.
Are you ready? All right. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Committee of the Whole meeting of the Village of Walton Hills of Tuesday, May 17th, 2022 at 7:02 p.m. Second order of business, roll call.
Councilman Nielsen?
Here.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller?
Here.
Councilwoman Allen? Here. Councilman Spitznagel?
Here.
Councilman Whedon?
Present.
All of council present, along with our fiscal officer, Angela Rebe, and our law solicitor, John Montello. Okay. We have four pieces of legislation tonight. First piece of legislation under item 4 is item A, ordinance 2022-6, the fireworks House Bill 172 opt out. I know we've talked about it in quite a few council meetings since the governor passed House Bill 172. What this ordinance does, Mr. Montello put together, it just is saying we're keep our existing legislation in place. We'd like to follow that, and just reaffirming our existing legislation, which does not allow fireworks in the village of Walton Hills. So, that's what that does. So I don't know if you have any questions for Mr. Montello, or we want to discuss it anymore, or you're ready to vote on it. I'd like to get it passed and ask for suspension if we could.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I'd be willing to introduce that for suspension, especially since the season is coming up.
okay. Is everybody good with that? Okay, that sounds good. Any questions relating to that from council? Anything, comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Yeah,
Mr. Nielsen.
just to kind of expound on this a little bit, I did have a chance to talk to the chief, and he feels what we have here is sufficient to do the job. So, you know, and I feel that he is the person to go to talk to about it. So I think we're in pretty good shape as far as passing this tonight.
Good, thank you. I did read a letter of support from the chief, supporting keeping in the COW, meaning keeping the existing ordinance in place. He did put a letter out there in support of that too. Any other questions from council? Any questions from any residents? Whether they're live streaming or they're here? Welcome to all the residents who are watching us live streaming, and also to any non-residents that are watching our meeting. Okay, then we'll have that for suspension. Jennifer can introduce that. Item B, Resolution 2022-7, the Walton Hills Lake Club Agreement. We had that on first reading. I know we wanted to go through some things, which you went through with the rec meeting, plus we wanted to go through some things with the Parker program on what times and, you know, changes with that, and we've gotten all that ironed out and worked out. So I'd like to ask for suspension on second reading with that, if everybody's in agreement with the Lake Club contract.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
did we get confirmation from Ms. McCormick about that, that it's okay, the hours are going to
Yes,
change?
yes, she did. She said we're gonna we have no problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I know the last time she was here and we talked at the rec meeting, she was, she still had trustees to get in touch with, so that's why.
Yeah, I talked to her, she called me while I was on vacation, I talked to her, we texted, and I talked to her after that, and then I did talk to her this Monday. She's out of town, so, but, and I know we do have a trustee here and stuff, so it didn't seem to be a problem with that. And we do have 3 lead counselors, and I'm gonna have Natalie and the lead counselors are gonna meet with the Lake Club too, you know, a couple of representatives from that, and just kind of go over everything and, you know, start off and have a good season for our Parkers down there too, so.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Before this gets introduced, though, there needs to be an amendment to it to reflect those hours changed, because they were not changed in the contract.
It's in here. The changes is in the resolution. 1:30, is it 1:30? The new change?
It's supposed to be changed from 1 to
1.
3.
Okay. All right, so you're right. It still says 1:30.
So section 5 just changed 1 PM, 3 PM?
Yes. From 1:30 to 1 and from 3:30 to 3.
Right.
okay, and that's fine, but I was just gonna say, with that said, we do have, it's up to you, maybe, John, what you think, and we did talk about it. Item 6, the scope of this contract may be changed during the period of its enforcement, subject to mutual consent by the village legislative authority, which is you guys, and the trustees of the company. But probably good to make an amendment, huh? Yeah.
I just thought that way, Mr. Mayor, because
Then it's clear.
the rec department specifically asked for those hours.
Sure, that would,
Yep.
yeah.
Let's do it. Yep, that'd be good. What would it, you wanna make?
When you adopt the ordinance, just
Use your mic. That's okay.
When you adopt the ordinance, I would just, you know, with the understanding that the contract will be amended in paragraph, whatever it is, 5 there, from 1 to 3, or whatever, whatever paragraph it is. That's all, just make us.
It is paragraph 5, so, like you said. Who would like to introduce that for suspension?
I can introduce it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Brian's gonna do that. Everybody good with that? Okay, very good. Okay, any questions relating to item B, Walton Hills Lake Club contract? No questions from council? Any questions from any residents that are here or any residents that are watching the live stream? Did you have a question, Josephine? Did you have a question?
Maybe she just walked in.
They did agree to pass it under suspension, so.
I was a little late. What happened?
We did it, council did agree to pass it under suspension.
And what is it, so you're gonna opt out completely?
Oh, you want to, okay, we'll go back to the fireworks. Yes, we're going to leave our existing ordinance in place for item A.
Okay.
So what we're doing with ordinance that 2022-6 fireworks house, Bill 172 opt out, it reaffirms that we're opting out of that and keeping our existing ordinance in place.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
And then we're on the Lake Club contract, and that's going to pass under suspension also. That was on first reading, but if we go to second reading, then we have to pass it that too under suspension. And we don't have to, but like to get it done before June too, so. Then we have item C. We have no questions. Any questions from anybody?
I've got no questions in the eye.
Okay. We got item C, which is resolution 2022-11. That's the Kimball Recycling and Disposal contract. Okay, we did discuss that. Did put in the record at our last meeting our letter from Mr. Kalman and his recommendation. And his recommendation is to go with Kimball. And one of the reasons we did talk about the issues we have had over the last year and a half or so, and those issues were mostly focusing on missing the trash, whether they miss a couple streets, a few streets, one house. And so that was addressed because it wasn't just happening in Walton Hills. It was happening in the consortium that we belong to, which is Bedford, Bedford Heights, Orange, and Walton Hills. And that was a big concern, but they had, let's see, 5 or 6 companies that bid. The closest company had a lot of exceptions to the contract, and a lot of them wouldn't have met, we felt, council felt, Mr. Kalman felt, and the administration, that it wouldn't meet the needs of the residents. One of those, they had a lot of restrictions on what they would pick up and what they wouldn't pick up. From building the material to refrigerators. Right now, we have an all-inclusive contract, and we feel that our residents would benefit more from that. But we also feel the issues they had have been worked out. For the last month or so, things have been good. We haven't had any complaints with missed streets or missed houses. And so the recommendation from the consortium, which Mr. Kalman's very active is to recommend Kimball. 2 communities have already passed theirs, us and I think Bedford Heights.
Bedford Heights will be tonight, I believe, and Bedford passed it last night.
Right.
And the lowest and best bid.
And then Orange already passed theirs, so, and they were asking, the consortium was asking Rob, and I said, well, I think council's got a good chance of passing it tonight too. So he did pass it, but it doesn't mean you have to. I just had a pretty good feeling, because I know we had Rob here and we asked him a lot of questions, so. I'd like to ask for suspension for that, if everybody's in agreement with that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
We did have some follow-up with that, I believe a day or two after our meeting with Mr. Kalman. Ran the numbers. If Angela would
Right.
like to speak on that, please?
Sure, so, when Rob ran some numbers, we're currently, averaging between 14,000 and 15,000 a month, which will come out to very close to, if we stayed at that rate and where we're at with tonnage, the 180,000 that we budgeted. And I budgeted that on purpose at 15,000 a month. And so with the new rates, we're looking at possibly maybe another 4,000 over what we budgeted for that second half of the year. So feasible for the increase in price.
Thank you.
So just to let the residents know, with that question, we're gonna be able to absorb it this year without a problem, and we'll have to, when we review the budget, see what we're gonna do, moving forward for 2023.
Yeah.
I'm hoping we can absorb the difference in it, and not have to pass, that increase on to our residents if we have a good year here, which I feel we're going to. So, and I think things are gonna get better as time goes on. Mr. Weed?
Yeah, Mayor Colgrove, one question as it relates to the, if the village needs to pass the cost on, the additional cost for 23 to the residents. This is a question for you and maybe for Angela. What would be the timeline as it relates to notifying the county to that whole assessment and getting it on the bill, I mean, on the tax bill piece? What's
So
the
just
timeline?
like the last time we did it, and I'm gonna forget what month you passed in, but we ended up having to capture only, I believe it was fourth quarter, and then first, second, third, just by nature of when the county needs to know. So if we were going to do it, it's probably something that would pick up in the second half of 23. But really, in another couple of months, Rob and I can take a look at where we're at with tonnage. You know, are we way over where we thought we'd even be for tonnage, or are we in line with what they've got? And then reassess, okay, here's where we're probably gonna finish the year, and where is that gonna leave us with next year's rates? So we will hopefully have an answer, let's say fall, and we would come back, if you recess for council, then we would come back from that, or August roughly. Him and I can sit down and look at that, so that we would know. And if we need to get it to the county, you know, because we pay everything in arrears anyway with county, and we receive money that's in arrears, I believe if we would get it to them by the beginning of the year, we would start seeing it second half of 20. Normally, I do send special assessments over, I want to say in September, Mr. Mantel, does that sound familiar? Okay. So yeah, so when we have lawn abatements and anything like that extra that has to go in addition to our current trash levy that we have on or whatever, or charges, that's got to be certified over in September. So.
Any other questions related to the Kimball contract from council? Any questions related to the Kimball contract from any residents? Or any residents that are live streaming? We did have some questions at our COW meeting last week, and we did discuss it. At that time, we did have Mr. Kalman here, and we did go over, council received all the whole bid package, and along with his recommendation letter. And that was the recommendation from the consortium too, which we feel has done a good job for the village. The consortium, it gives us a little bit of leverage there, especially for ourselves. We're one of the smaller communities of the four, so it gives us a little more leverage when dealing with the contract. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Resolution 2022-12. Tom Jordan Associates, Mr. Jordan, who is here tonight, that's to amend his contract. We did talk about that last week, but I can just kind of go over what we talked about. His contract's been the same since 2019. There hasn't been any increases. We pay him a retainer fee of $2,300 a month for economic development consulting, and any hours in excess of $25, this is the existing contract, any hours in excess of 25 hours per month are billed at $75 per hour. With that said, he's never billed us That's $75 per hour, even though I know there's been times when we've gone past that. His new proposal, the amendment here, is to increase the monthly fee to $200 from $2,300 a month to $2,500 a month, and any hours in excess of 25 hours per month are billed at $100 per hour instead of the 75, which Mr. Jordan came to me, I felt was very reasonable. One of the reasons why, and I know Mr. Jordan's sitting here, is he, with the good things we have going on and a lot of economic development, he is spending a lot more time in our community and with us, which is a good thing. We got a lot of good projects going on. I'm going to have Tom just give a little summary, what he can say about what's going on tonight, similar to what you did, Tom, at morning meeting with the mayor. I felt that was a pretty good overview. I know council asked Tom if Tom could give a little overview tonight. So at the beginning of the meeting, I didn't know if Tom was going to make it here. I know you had another meeting, so I'm glad you're here. So that's that. I'd like to ask for suspension for that, but if council wants to put on for readings, that's fine too. It's up to how council feels with that. So I'm in support of it. I think Tom is very valuable to the village, is a great asset, and we certainly need his expertise right now. That's for sure.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
you know, I've had a chance to deal with Mr. Jordan here, and I'll tell you, it's just watching what's going on and how much time and everything he puts in, and with you and with the Ford plan, of course, and other things that are going on here in the village. I would like to see if we could pass this tonight. If everybody's in agreement.
Mr. Mayor, I'm in agreement with passing it tonight.
Mr. Mayor, I'm also in agreement with passing it tonight.
Okay. Good. Okay. Who would like to introduce that for suspension?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to introduce that, please.
Okay. Mr. Nielsen.
Mayor Colerack?
Oh, did I skip Kimball?
Yes,
Oh,
I will introduce that.
would you like to introduce? Okay, great. Very good. Sorry about that. I seen Mr. Jordan walked in. Well, that's good. Okay, Ray will introduce for suspension. Everybody's good. The other thing, just to get back to item C, we would have also, we would have had to switch containers too and stuff. And that's one thing, our residents have been pretty happy with the container service we receive. I mean, it sounds like a small thing, but in some of the communities, like Rob has experienced, and I, he talks to the service directors, I talk to mayors in other communities. If they have trouble with their cans, a lot of times they can't get anybody to fix the wheels, they can't get anybody responsive to give them another can, some of the other companies. So we've had pretty good luck that way. They've been pretty responsive with keeping it, the cans going. Because if you do have a problem with your can, you just call them up, they will fix the wheels or do whatever to keep it in good shape, so. Okay, so we got that covered. Fred, you're going to introduce. Ray's going to introduce C. Fred's going to be. We got them all covered. Let me ask council this. Angela, we're going to do talk about finances and other business. Would you rather have Tom give a overview before the finances or after the finances on economic development? In other business, we can, right now, since we're there.
Well, if he has to go anywhere, yeah.
Well, I think, Tom, you're going to stick around for an executive session. So either way, it's up to you guys.
We've gone through everything. Mark, go ahead.
Okay, Tom, if you want to just give an overview to we are live streaming. So, see, I always make it for short people like me, see? Then you get the tall people, him and Rob go up there and they gotta
Good evening, council and mayor and members of the public. My name is Tom Jordan. I'm the economic development consultant here for the Village of Walton Hills. What the topic the mayor would like a brief update for the public on is the redevelopment of the former Ford stamping plant on Northfield. Currently, the new ownership bought it on 12/28 of last year. They filed an application with the state of Ohio on 1/31 for $10 million to take down the building and demolish it and do some environmental remediation. In addition, they've applied to Cuyahoga County for $3 million. So about $13 million of public funds have been applied for to essentially take down the existing facility, which is nearly 2 million square feet of existing structures, in addition to a lot that once allowed for over 4,000 cars to be parked in. The sale did go through. The applications have not been awarded yet. The public may be aware of that the state of Ohio did award about $60 million of the $350 million that have been made available in the first round. We do anticipate that there'll be another round awarded here within the next couple of weeks, and that we hope that the Village of Walton Hills project, the former Ford plant, will be amongst the awardees. Nonetheless, the ownership group has filed with the Village of Walton Hills an application to demolish the structure. That application has been reviewed and processed by the village engineer, along with input from the existing building department, its outside agency, Safe Built, myself, and the law director. Under Ohio Building Code, there is not a lot of input under the building code to demolish a structure. However, given its size and also the known environmental issues at the site, the village has met with their technical staff and requested a number of conditions be met prior to the building being demolished. Some of them have to do with making sure that the Ohio EPA has been properly notified and that all of their regulations have been abided for, as well as the Ohio Department of Health, which does regulate the dust control measures that had to be taken at the site during the process of demolition. The village has also been monitoring or requesting the truck routes. When that building comes down, parts of it have to be hauled away, and the truck routes obviously would not be going through any of the residential areas of the neighborhood. And also any of the extra measures that are being taken to make sure that dust is managed at the site. The permit has not been issued. We are close to doing so. The village has prepared a notice to the nearby landowners to the Ford site. We hope to release that in the next couple of days when we firm up the demolition start date. The developer has indicated that he'd like to start the demolition process next week, with or without any award from the state of Ohio. I will tell you that that is a frequent measure. I think it speaks to the firmness which they believe that eventually the funds will be made available. It also speaks to the developer's capability in the event that the monies do not be awarded, that they themselves can bear the burden of mobilizing and demolishing the structure. So the nearby neighbors will be notified. In the notification, the city's general number will be made available. So you could call the village to the hall. We have set up a process through the engineering department to have a contact for the village that will be on site monitoring the issues over at the plant. I will tell you again, though, that our partners, the Ohio Department of Health and Ohio EPA, will handle certain matters and that they regulate. The village's authority
to manage some aspects of the demolition will be followed and monitored by the on-site inspector. All we ask from the public at this time is that no demolition process is perfect, nor is any construction project perfect. There will be some interruption of traffic flow. There will be some level of dust and noise that will be created as they take down that parts of it are over 50 years old. Just we ask the public have patience. If there is some concern that a member of the public has, please do call the general number. We will have that concern addressed, and someone will be back to them if there's some follow-up required. That's what we know for certain because of the applications that have been filed, both with the state and with the village. We have been meeting with the developer about their plans for the site. It's a very large site, over 100 acres. The current market is indicating that a large industrial warehouse type facilities are in demand. We anticipate that they will file some applications for new construction at the site here very shortly. They have started preliminary discussions with the village relative to the types and what the zoning allows and what the village will require relative to a submission to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will review any site plan. The demolition is separate, but the Planning Commission will review any new construction at the site and the placement of any buildings at the site. We do anticipate that application will be filed shortly with the village. At this point, I said that rather calmly, I believe sort of succinctly, but it is an exciting prospect to see some action at the Ford plant. Many of you may notice that there are cars, a lot of them already on site. Projects of both the new construction and the demolition take a lot of planning. A lot of those are engineers and architects that are taking a look at the site, environmental people that are doing the testing necessary to make sure that all of the contaminants are handled during the demolition process. Ford Motor Company still has obligations at the site and will continue to do so for many years. Essentially, what's below ground is still a lot of their responsibility. What's above ground is the new ownership. There is a lot of background work going on, and we hope to see some large construction equipment mobilized, frankly, within the next few days on site in preparation for demolition.
Tom, with that said, just to kind of add to that a little bit, one of the three owners, which we know, which is the DiGeronimo Group, demolition and taking down large buildings nationally is their part of their business. In fact, they're probably one of the biggest players in the country to do that. So we're kind of fortunate that they're the ones doing it. They have the capability to do it and to do it right. Because as we have to issue this demolition permit, we had a lot of concerns, and they've been very good with working within those. But it's nice when you're working with somebody who's done projects even bigger than this across the country. So I don't know if you want to expound on that. You've had experience with smaller, and we're fortunate that they're part of that group.
Right, they have, a lot of times, most developers, this is all outsourced work, especially the demolition. But actually, one member of the ownership group, which is comprised of Weston, DiGeronimo, and Scannell, is known nationally for large-scale demolition projects. There is quite a bit of scrap. You will notice that they will, as they take down the buildings, they will be sorting through and segregating parts of the components of the building, and they will be hauling them out. Also, they intend to reactivate the rail spur in the back, so some of the product will be shipped out using the rail spur. So we'll see there. The DiGeronimo Group was and is based in Independence. I will tell you, yes, when I'm sitting across the table from them, we're talking about demolition, even with our engineering group, I would say that, yes, they know a lot more than the average village engineer or the village building department knows about. They took down Denver Airport. They do a lot of coal-fired plants currently are coming down nationally. I did mention $350 million is being made available in the state of Ohio for these type of projects. In addition to the Ford plant, which they're part owner of, I anticipate that they will have a large portion of that business will actually be going to DiGeronimo, doing it in other cities throughout the state of Ohio.
They're actually taking down the former, they took down the old VA hospital, which is now going to be the new Sherwin-Williams headquarters.
Right, and they are developing it as well, in an office and mixed-use site in Brecksville. which is
And
a
they
huge
also
budget.
did do the Brook Park plant recently. As Tom can say, he drives by there every day, he's seen the building there. In a couple of days, he didn't see the building anymore, but this project they're anticipating will take, I think 10 to 12 months, something like that.
They are, the permit will allow them to go to 12 to 14 months, but they have projected at probably around 10. So they, due to any unforeseen circumstance, it will go over that period.
Any questions from council relating? Go ahead.
Mayor Colgraf and Mr. Jordan, I just have one question. You mentioned about the communication regarding, the demolition and dust control, that kind of thing. Whose responsibility is that? Is that the village or how does that work?
Well,
when you
it's a
think
good
of-
question.
because I'm thinking
Ultimately,
about-
it's the owner is required to abide by the regulations and the conditions of the permits that have been issued.
Yeah.
There'll be 3 separate permits, one from ODH, one from Ohio EPA, and one from the village. So whatever conditions were placed upon those permits, they're to follow. I will tell you, though, that there is going to be some level of inconvenience to the neighbors during this process. Wind can change or pick up. Subcontractors may not be aware that the truck should go east and not west. And, we will remind them of that. Some contractors, subs or otherwise, might go past the stated working hours, but we will remind them of that. And no one works perfectly in such a large project, but we'll do our best with monitoring the site. I think they're a very professional group. I hope that they will, abide by those conditions. Again, this isn't their first day at the rodeo, but I again, no construction project I have ever been associated with has gone strictly according to plan. It's just a matter of how you deal with it and how you're able to respond to it. And I think we have done our best in trying to set up a team here at the village, given its size, to respond to it. We've set up a contingency for more on-site inspection if it's required. And we'll try to keep the public as informed as we can.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council? And we will, Mr. Jordan's going to talk a little more in depth about that property too in the executive session. It's on the agenda along with pending litigation. Any question? No questions? Any questions from any residents that are here or any residents that are watching our live stream relating to that, or any questions from non-residents that are watching our live stream?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
not a question, just a comment. Sounds great.
Well,
I
good.
mean, it just sounds great that we're moving forward, that something is actually
Yeah.
going to happen now.
No, the email traffic has picked up, and they intend to try to get something underway next week. Our goal is to get that demo permit up, I would hope by the latest at the end of the week. And, it'd be great to see, in many ways, to see it come down. And we look forward to a submission to the Planning Commission.
And we're hoping we start seeing a new building this year. Wouldn't that be fantastic? And with that said, the reason is, because people will say, well, how can that be, Mr. Mayor? That large parking lot that Mr. Jordan talked about is clean. They just need to remove the asphalt, and they can excavate right there, correct, Tom?
They can. There are identified areas of the site that can't be disturbed unless they take further action, but that part of the site, we believe, from what we have received, that they would be allowed to disturb that area of the property and build the first building there. It's the most visible corner, ironically, for the village, so it'd be nice to see something there.
Better than that old barbed wire fence.
The fence will stay up during the demolition
Right.
process in order to, for safety reasons. But as hopefully in this planning commission submission, they will show a future without the fence and some landscaping, buffering, sidewalks, and different entry points to the property.
Nice.
Good. Okay, with no questions, we'll move on and to other business. Angela, I know we requested we go over finances.
Yes, as I'm
Review.
passing out things that everybody needs to read
Thanks,
the
Tom.
glasses for. Do you mind if I mention, do we have short-term rental legislation, refresh my memory, please, for in Walton Hills? Or code,
You mean
code and zone,
residential rental?
residential short-term. Okay.
Bill pending in.
That's what I wanted to bring up, House Bill 563, that's out there right now, trying to limit the ability of local governments to put restrictions on short-term rentals and Airbnb is in play. So it probably bears discussing at some point, and the main reason I even bring this up now too is that an Airbnb just went in next to my mother's house. So another little burg village, another village, quite small, not expecting it. And, I looked through their code, I saw nothing, and spoke to a council person. They're actually discussing it at their meeting tonight. So I don't know what their plan was since I could not attend. But it was obviously unexpected that would happen.
We don't allow our B&Bs. It's prohibited in Walton Hills. We already have it in legislation.
Awesome, okay.
That's why I
I
didn't-
couldn't remember. I thought we talked short-term rentals recently, but.
No,
Excellent.
we talked about it. We have it in legislation already. It's already been passed by this body. We don't allow it.
So, Mr. Montello, for anyone who already had legislation in place, how will House Bill 563, will that supersede?
Probably, but I don't think it's passed just yet, so I'll find out in the next month or so.
Okay.
It might be similar to fireworks, but I don't think so. I think they're gonna say that local communities cannot regulate it, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, something to watch for sure. Okay, all right, so moving on, I've given you,
See how we're ahead of a lot of communities?
you are, for sure, but I
That's,
you gotta think
we
ahead.
listen to what's around us and we react and, yeah, that's something, I think we passed that, a year ago?
A year or two, we went through
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And I own a short-term rental in another state, so I'm familiar with
Right.
how things can be with short-term rental.
Well, we're hoping it
So,
doesn't go through,
Yeah, and that would absolutely be.
because
a
they
blessing.
have their place, but
I know
not in
I-
our country home district.
I know that a big group of local mayors went down to Columbus last week to speak to legislators about that House bill, so.
Mhm.
Okay, so, Councilwoman Allen, our Finance Committee meeting is the first week in June, correct?
No, it's the second.
Oh, okay.
June
all right,
14th.
June 14th, okay. All right, so I've given you, just, I know we've got executive session coming up and everything too, so I'm giving you first quarter.
No, take your time, we go through this, I want to go through.
I've given you just revenues and expenses, no
Right.
general fund summary pages today, just because I need to update the formula anyway. And I'm gonna backtrack and go month by month to be able to post it and, put it on the website. So, if we can go through some revenues. Bottom line right now is that we're, you know, to the black about 200,000. And that will get better because April's not included in here and we are very tax heavy in April. It started in March, but we've got lots and lots of tax batches for April. So everyone was pretty timely this year in filing. So let me get glasses on because I am too old to see this little. And you let me know if you want to go line by line or department by department or section by section.
Okay, you're starting where, on revenues?
Yeah, revenues is your first 4 pages.
Okay.
So you tell me.
Angela, if you would, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
Angela,
go
if you
ahead,
would just
go ahead.
hit like the big
Yeah.
points, you know.
Yeah, so income tax, you know, withholding, we were already at, just under 700,000, for first quarter. Individuals down a little bit, we're at 48, but again, most of the bulk of that's gonna be in April. And then net profit, same thing, we budgeted 650, so for first quarter, we're at 165, and a lot of that will pick up in April. Property tax allocation, we received our advance of 24,000, then we received, we received the settlement from first half 2021, which was 227,000, I want to say, you know, broken into various accounts, which would be police pension, special assessments, and general fund, and another 132,000, most of which was our special assessment portion. So that's come in within, spread out over January, February, and March. I know the first quarter is never super exciting, so I'm just trying to look at highlights on the revenue side of things. Traffic cameras, you can see are just under 93,000. In any given month, we may get about 35,000, we may get up to 50. It just depends what's going on with that. But as you see, again, we don't put the whole, all the eggs in the basket on that because that could be shut down at any time. We're about status quo on building permits. I feel like that's picking up a little bit, both commercial and residential, and obviously with activity at the corner, that will happen.
There'll be a big number there.
Yep. Page 2, cable franchise fees we've gotten a first quarter. And if anybody, we had talked before about quarterly utility. Well, right, we've gotten a $9.87 distribution on that quarterly utility electric tax that you see on the first page. I know it was 0 last year. So we'll see if we get some more this year. Let's see. Coming in regular with gasoline tax and vehicle registration tax. Our local government fund money that we used to get that was nominal, we still do not really get any because our cameras offset that. We have to do a report each year on what we take in for camera revenue. It's about all on page 2. Page 3. Intergovernmental is just some more things for funds that we've gotten in. City of Cleveland gave us our money right away for the Tulip Chestnut Hickory project, so that is in there. And then also, I'm going to forget Laurel Lane. Does that sound right? To do water main or a drainage issue on Laurel?
We have restoration over
So
there,
that's
we're
with the
doing the
25
head wall over there
That,
on Laurel.
yeah, that's what the 25,000 is for under sewer improvement. And the 224 in intergovernmental actually will pair up where I budgeted in miscellaneous and non-operating, that actually will pair up with that.
So the 25
And
is
some
Laurel.
of that's also probably, I think I had one last check from Maple come in this year on Dunham. That's really kind of the highlights there. The JED, again, will be a lot heavier after April as well, but it'll, yeah, on par. It'll be on par. Any questions about revenues? Nothing super exciting.
I have one question.
Yeah.
My question is on, going back to page 1,
Yeah.
under the income tax net profit.
Uh-huh,
And I know you mentioned, it's 8, this does not include April.
right.
But even not including April, the 165,270, is still representative, fairly good for a 3-month period
Absolutely,
as compared to the actual budgeted amount.
yeah.
However, my question is, compared to the 2021 actual and what we budgeted for 2022, was 2021, was any of that COVID related or?
No, it's always extension related. Actually, I think we did a little better than normal ending the year than, you know what I'm saying? So, it's all extension related. Most of the businesses that do owe money file extensions, and then we do have a lot of businesses that are actually kind of break even here, and don't end up owing a ton of money. So yeah, I think that we are okay COVID wise. At morning meeting with the mayor, in case some of you were not there, I did, the biggest thing that happened with COVID to a lot of cities, especially if they were service industry cities, like Independence, for example, residents who started working from home can now go ahead and request refunds for 2021. 2020 was still up in the air, so as tax administrators, most of us are not doing anything with 2020. 2021, I used Keith from Bedford's forms. We all kind of shared in our tax realm. And so there is a requirement. You need to, just like our truck drivers that were on the road in the past, you need to have your employer certified that, yes, you were working from home either all of the time now or X percentage of the time in order to request that refund. And I also need, if you're not in a township and you do owe taxes to another city, I need to see your return for that city, so that we know, because we're all looking out for each other as cities too, that it's not just a refund to the person per se. If I go home and I'm in Seven Hills, I'm not getting the money to keep. Seven Hills wants it because, they tax as well. So that process had happened. I've had probably about 5 total, and they've been regular employees, not executive level employees, asking for their refunds. I've also, on the flip side though, had probably about 10 to 15 residents that are now working from home, or at least part of the time, to where we'll now get some of their withholding tax from their employer. So really, that's our COVID outcome, but we've still remained pretty steady COVID-wise. We didn't lose anybody.
Okay, so my question, I'm gonna do it real quick. So in 2021, our actual was 481,000.
Yes.
But for 2022, we budgeted 650,000. So it's really was the 2021 a good solid number, and was that kind of a low number because of, just forget about COVID. The 650 is still a good.
I think that's still a good number.
That's really
yeah.
what.
And then after this year, we'll reassess, because I think we budgeted something similar for the last several years, which our actual in 2020 was 680.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll see. If we happen to
2021
land
was
low
the
again,
difference.
then we'll take a look at what's going on with businesses themselves. Have they lost revenue? Is that what's causing their net profit money due to us to be less?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Okay, going on to page 1 of your expenses. We don't have much to highlight here either. I mean, salaries are our biggest thing right now. We did purchase orders in April for those dump trucks, but you're not even going to see those because I did speak to the auditor and we encumbered, to get the purchases through, even though the trucks aren't coming till next year, and even though we're leasing and it's gonna be a smaller payment, to get it all through, you do it for the entire amount of 2 trucks. So in speaking to the auditor, we can go ahead and we'll just wipe out the PO now that it's done and they're on order, because we needed to secure steel prices, because those are fluctuating every 7 days. That PO will get wiped out. That was probably our biggest thing that we did. And then we've got a roughly $37, almost $38,000 HVAC repair that we did budget for in the community room.
I think you guys put in the budget with, was it 40?
45, I think we did,
Yeah.
or 40. So yes, we had anticipated, we knew something needed to be fixed over there, so.
That's the room across the hall. Not
And again,
across-
that PO was issued in May, so you're gonna have
That
to
was
see that in the
with
future.
Smith and Obi, right?
I think
It's with Relmec.
Okay.
Yeah, Relmec actually came in cheaper for that. I'm just trying to look if there's anything here besides, yeah, you want, which overtime? So, police overtime, if you looks like it's way over what it should be, but a lot of that, I am including overtime that is actually part of like patrol duties. And so we do get grants that actually fund that from UH as well, so that offsets that. And I can put together something, going forward to show you, here's what's been in here. Actual police overtime is probably under $4,000. So let's say, like we have several officers that routinely go do, patrol, for some of the local companies. And that's what's offset by UH and then by, the companies themselves if they send in, checks for that, for using their cruisers and things like that. But I capture it here just so that I see what's going on with it. But we did have maybe like 1 week where people were on vacations, I want to say, and or out sick. So we had minimal overtime though. Okay, so that's not going to stay over budget per se. I'll give you an analysis of what we brought in. Overtime to date so far for service, when we get to that, is coming close to their budget though, and that does not get offset. All right, so there's nothing else significant really in the police section so far. Officer Walsh did do some training, and that was like over the course of January, February, March, and maybe even April down in Columbus. So when those charges are all finalized, you know, you'll see a little dip in their training budget. All right, fire contract, first payment went out for that. Let's see, I think we're okay. Yeah, everything is pretty status quo on this page too. Nothing super exciting. Like I said, first quarter is nice. January always dips a little bit upside down because we're still paying things from December as well and using up our old encumbrances. And then after that, we kind of mellow out. And tax season hits and we look great for a while. So coming over to safety department, service department. Nope, everybody's staying within budget for most of their stuff so far.
You wanted to talk about overtime, you said, in service.
Oh, yeah, well, service, I mean, we had random snow and probably some water main breaks and extra things, so, it's just a point, you know, just to point out that we may need to look at that again. When we do our finance meeting, so not only will we have at that point in time April, but that gives us time to have May as well, and then we can take a look as, and if you don't mind, Council President, I will probably throw together an agenda myself of things I think we should talk about, and you guys can add to it. Because then we can take a look to see if we need to increase appropriations for anything.
And that might be one due to the activity there.
Yeah, and like we've done some of our own work too, so.
Right.
Yeah, on certain projects. If we can self-perform, the service department usually tries to do that, and then we do sometimes, depending on the project, if it's sewer related, we can we bill our time out as well as materials to the sewer district, and we get reimbursements for some of those things. So that may also have a little bit of it.
Or we do it less than a contractor, so you're seeing it overtime, but in the
Yeah.
overall contractional, you're seeing less because we're doing it in-house. So it's to our
Absolutely.
advantage too.
Angela?
Yes.
Could you speak to the natural gas charges?
Yeah, so our gas charges are up, and I have a person who does our contracts for electric and gas. She did electric last year, which puts us, I believe, on a 2-year fixed, cycle. I handed her over gas, and I have to touch base with her because I don't know if she ever did come back around with it or not. But our bills were higher than usual in this particular season, which I know at home, bills went up as well. I had to switch, suppliers myself. So I'm gonna get with her about that. Obviously, it's not season for using natural gas as much now, so we should mellow for a little bit while we get it figured out. But that might be the issue. If she did not do my contracts like I thought she did, or if they were not quite up yet and they're up now, then that might be part of the reason we're so high on the gas this year. Well, yeah, I don't know that the natural gas has gone up because of that, but
Yeah,
because
yeah,
the
yeah.
beginning of the year, I don't know if anybody else noticed at their house that it was astronomical all of a sudden if you were coming off of a fixed cycle that you were on with another supplier.
Angela?
Yes.
Under service department also, do we have, I see that seasonal is not,
We did not budget for seasonal for them, because remember Rob asked for a part-timer? And so he's got his part-timer, and then he's
Okay.
using one employee from the park at the same rate, just a couple weeks now, and probably after that, person is done at the park, maybe a little bit in between, but because it took him so long to hire the part-timer, we talked about this, the money will be there. We didn't use a full year's worth of part-time salary,
okay,
so that we should be okay there.
okay.
Yeah, Rob and I had that discussion. All right.
And we might be talking about, depending on how things go with the expansion up there and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if there's more manpower needed, we will need to revisit. I think we're okay on every other salary. Mayor's court's been every other week as regular. Auditors station started, so the fees are nominal still. The auditors just started coming on site in April, or the last few weeks, end of April, beginning of May. So we'll see those fees start rolling in the next couple months. And then same thing on that tax refund line. I don't think, I have refunds sitting in the system just waiting to be actually closed out and processed. But we should still be within under the 75,000. Like I said, the handful I've gotten so far are regular employees. So minimal refund. We do have one C-level employee at one company here that does travel a lot. That's probably our biggest refund. I think we're okay in administrative and finance salaries. We haven't done any transfers yet, so nothing there yet. Doing okay in the SCMR fund. Yeah, I don't know. Sidewalk curbs. Some of what you'll see in there, it looks like, oh my gosh, we're already halfway done with our road project, but we're not. Some of that is paying out the 2021 maintenance program, and then grant money coming in for that, because that just kind of trickles over. So grant money will come in for that. And I think that's it for me. I do still need to pay out first quarter. I'm a little behind on doing it, so you'll see that come out of there on the JED line when April's finalized in May. As far as roads go, did you pass that along? We did get our OPWC grant that we applied for, we had received the grant and then we applied for half loan. So that all went through for that particular road project that we were gonna.
Yeah, we just got that the
Where
other day.
last year we got denied
send you
because we
guys
were
a copy
asking
of
for
that.
all grant money. We split it 50-50 this time, 0% loan, 2 years, I believe it is, same as the rest of the OPWCs. So that will help with one of the road projects we have.
That will be for Alexander, so we'll have to talk about that. He'll probably put a bid package together.
Yes, I think, no, he started, yeah. And I put it out at the bottom here since I didn't give you the general fund. Just I put what the revenues were and what the position would be on the very last page. Expenses were 1.6 million roughly, and revenue was 1.8. So we stand at about 200 to the buck right now.
Angela, I know, you made this last time. I don't know if you wanted to, where is
What?
that sheet? About what we have in our investments.
Oh, investment account, again, we make minimal, there's no movement going on to it. I don't touch the investments. We're with Star Ohio.
This is what we had, if you need
So
that.
Star Ohio handles everything, and there's not a whole lot of in and out. It's a very stable fund, so we're at about 516,000 in there. I think the last interest I posted was just over $130. And that's actually a good month. And then our fund balance, our fund balance for first quarter is at about 3.392, so 3.3 million, almost 3.4 million, which is pretty steady for us. That's about where we hover almost all year, to be honest. Yeah. So if anybody has questions, let me know. I'm gonna shift gears. The auditors will be back in on Thursday, so been playing back and forth between tax and finance and audit. So I took a few days off while they weren't here from them. I do have some things to gather for them. I think they will wrap up their on-site portion this week or next week, as long as they have everything. They're done, I think they're done with Mayor's Quarter. They have everything they need from Nancy, and they're finishing up some testing of income tax and the JED, and which is actually a separate audit, the JED, and then all of our payroll and non-payroll samples on the finance end. And then they will go back behind the scenes and finish what they're doing and just ask me for things periodically at that point. But income tax season is never over, no matter what anybody says. So that will also still be there to throw some returns in that had no payments with them.
Mayor,
Yes, right.
some residents have asked why the auditors are here so much, basically.
They're really
Could
not
you-
here much.
Could you expand on
Yeah,
that? or
so
answer that?
it's great to have them here because it was hell on wheels trying to make copies and scan 500 things over during COVID, I can tell you that. So when they come on site, it is typically for a period of at least a month, maybe 5 weeks. And they start out here 2 to 3 days. And there's 3 of them. Josh is our lead auditor this time. He still has someone above him too. Jessica, who was on our last audit, is kind of in the intermediary one. And then they've got someone new, Selena. So part of it is training. And with auditors, part of it is also that Josh may not be working strictly on Walton Hill just because he's sitting on our premises the whole day. So he may be here to do some of ours, assist the other two, but be also following up on some other things he's already working on for other projects. So it is very customary for them to spend at least a month or 5 weeks to come in, look at some things, because I give things that they can take with them for the most part. Income tax batches are a little harder, they have to give them back, but not everybody gives stuff that they can walk out the door with and say, you know, here's your, we don't get it ahead of time either. They try to give as much notice when they're here. Here's a list. Okay, here's my list in 2 days for what I need. But you don't get it way before they're coming to say, here's your stack, see you later, call me with questions. So while they're here, they have interviewing to do. They interview for Mayor's Court, Nancy, and they'll interview me, and they may have questions for Lisa about records keeping or anything building related or.
They interview me, they
Yeah, and
interview some council
Jennifer had to
members.
fill some things out, you know, people had fraud questionnaires to fill out at random. So, yeah, so it's very customary because they want to be able to spread out, look at your stuff, and if they have subsequent questions while they're looking, then I'm right here and they can say, hey, can you also pull this sample for this, or is there, you know, we're missing some backup, can we get this? Yeah, it's actually not a lot. It feels like a lot because I'm one person and then pulling all this stuff, but otherwise, it's actually not a lot. And I feel like it's already, like, it's a lot more efficient. The last audit, again, with COVID, and then they had one person retiring. Josh kind of had to redo some of her piece. She was a little checked out. So toward the tail end of the audit, that's what he was kind of doing, redoing and shoring up that. So that one was almost a little more tedious in just gathering things, but yeah.
And we're on a 2-year cycle.
We're on a 2-year cycle. Some cities, depending on if they, you know, the bigger cities and the counties, because of the ARPA funds they receive being so large, they may have needed an in-between audit for that, but because we didn't receive a lot, that still remains that it will go with our 2-year audit. You know, it won't have any bearing on them needing to come back again in between. Yeah.
I think part of it, maybe why it seemed like a lot, they didn't do 18 and 19. They were behind on that. So we just kind of, just wrapped that
We were
one
all
up.
behind on that, but they weren't, I mean, they weren't on site a lot for that one either because it was COVID when they were here
Right.
in 20.
And that through.
But they got a lot of it scanned over to them. They were in various locations at the time too, which makes it harder when they're, again, when they're sitting here to collaborate. If Jessica's trying to teach something to Selena and isn't quite sure and can't remember something, she can say, hey, Josh, by the way, what was this again? They also have new components. So like now they're testing contracts. So this year I've had to pull contracts for some of our road projects and some things like that behind the scenes. So each year there's something new. Last time it was public records that was new, and then that's still in play. They're still testing public records. And then they are, so they look for what's being, you know, what's being pulled, how are we storing it, you know, who's responding, is there a custodian? And then now contracts is another big one, because every so often I'll be like, did we do this next time? I don't remember doing this last time. So there's new pieces added on and new auditor state bulletins that go along with the accounting piece for governments. So, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions from council relating to the budget review or? Any question? Go ahead, Ray.
I mean, I had a couple of questions, but I'll hold them and pass them on to our chair for finance committee.
Okay. Any questions from any
No, I'm
residents
starting
that
to
are
wonder
here?
if I have something messed up with the chat today or something, because I've had nobody, I asked for them to let me know if the sound was okay, and I've gotten nothing.
I
Crickets.
checked on
There's 11 people
I
on.
checked on my computer and I
You
could,
could see, but could you?
yeah, I could hear.
Could you comment?
Oh, I didn't try
Yeah,
that in.
I want to make sure, I mean, I did everything the same as I usually do. You never know. Okay, so we'll see. Unless everyone can hear us well. We do have 11 viewers right now.
Good. Well, if there, anything else under other business?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Spitznagel.
we had a couple recreation committee meetings now, and we've had surveys, and this is now the end of May. So survey was pretty clear. The residents wanted at least to play basketball for their kids and adults. So I do know that the mayor has the ability to spend without council's approval up to, I believe it's $5,000 or $6,000, one of those numbers. But I would like to have a motion of support to spend $4,000 to purchase a basketball hoop and mark a half-court basketball court. down at TG Young Park. So we can have that done by June and people can play for the summer. And that place will be shared.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion that you are approved to spend the money to buy the necessary equipment and to put in the striping that we need to put in and anything else that Rob might need to make this work.
Mr. John, would they make the motion here or in the council meeting?
Okay, we can forward it to this evening under our other business.
Okay, well, let me ask council this, okay? Well, as it is, it's $6,000, correct? Yeah, I could spend up to anything over $6,000, I need to make council aware of it, okay? I try to make, even if it's less than that, just because I want us always to be on the same page. I think it's important, since you legislate and you appropriate the money. I think it's the best way for, besides the everyday, I'm not gonna tell you, hey, we spent an extra $300 to fix a sewer, that's just everyday stuff. But anything outside of that, I do like to keep, in the loop. So, what's important to me is that, does council agree with that? Are you gonna make a motion? Everybody gonna agree with that, to support that? Because we would have to find
Mr. Mayor,
the money in the budget too, so.
John, can we make a motion and pass it the same night? I mean, if this is already falling under what the mayor is allowed to appropriate,
This would just be a motion of support showing that we would support them in doing that. That's all. That's
Okay.
all it is.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, or support from the rec committee and council.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
that's why I didn't think we needed to take this motion to council because, or for the committee meeting, because of, I know that we could do this even with the recreation committee, to approve this.
I guess you could do it in this meeting, because you're not actually authorizing the expenditure, just showing support of it.
Correct.
Still his call, but it's still the mayor's, within his discretion to spend the money or not. Yeah, I'm sure he would like your support before he did that.
Sure.
I definitely want your
Yes,
support
exactly.
before I would do that, because I know you guys have been talking about it and, working on it. I definitely would want a consensus,
And as
from
far as,
council and-
Mayor,
yes.
as far as the tennis courts and that, we're still looking at that for the upper level. Pickleball courts and things like that. We do have that grant outstanding, that we haven't heard anything yet, but, we're still, looking at that.
well, and Mr. Mayor, the Parker program's going to be starting soon.
Yeah, it's the end of May, and it can't be done in a day, so I'd like to have the service department have time to do it. I'm sure that's not the only thing on their agenda to do. So
Okay.
that would give them time to do it. And again, this is only a show of support for allocating or spending the money within your legal bounds to do it and just get it done.
Well, and as the rec committee, we had said that also.
Yes, yes,
That was the recommendation from the rec committee.
correct.
Okay. What I'll do, after you make that motion to have support, I will ask I'll ask Rob to get a quote and, on the project, and then, probably bring it even back to you and see if that fits the needs we're looking for, or, or just go and get it done. So they can, should they make that motion here or in the council meeting?
Oh, let's do it now. Let's get.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion of support of the mayor spending up to $4,000 to purchase a basketball hoop and striping for a half-court basketball court for the village.
Second.
Is it, okay, is there a second? We'll vote on the motion.
Councilman Nielsen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller?
Yes.
Councilwoman Allen?
Yes.
Councilman Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Councilman Weed?
Abstain.
Okay. What abstain goes to the majority, correct, John?
Yeah, you can, there's a split in case law about which way it goes, but it doesn't matter because the majority puts
Right.
forward or
Well,
whatever.
I thought it always went to the,
It does.
yeah, it goes to the, yes. Well, hang on a minute. Any questions from council relating to that? Before I open it up to. Okay,
Yeah, Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, I did have a question as it relates to, I mean, I understand a motion of support for the mayor to do something within the mayor's authorization, but the reason I abstain is because, I know we have talked about this in various iterations of it could be this or it could be that, but it's difficult for me to vote on anything without actually seeing an actual purchase quote and actual plan, what the actual plan is. And that's why I abstain. So, and I know there's various iterations, or it could be this, could be that. We could do it this way, this way, this way, that way, as it relates to the whole markings and all of that kind of thing. So just wanted to say that's why I abstain.
and let me just explain race so everybody understands where I'm at. Okay? This is, Mr. Spitznagel just brought it up now.
Yeah.
Today, okay? And as the mayor, if the board here says to me, we'd like to see an expenditure in this regard and offers us support, I am the catalyst, okay? I will bring it back to you, because that's why I mentioned that. I think it's a good idea to have the same open conversation like we're having now, after a quote and a plan is put together. I think that would be the best, so I plan on doing that. The reason I can't be in disagreement of the motion is because you did a survey. You got a survey here, and the survey, that was the highest thing on the survey. I know you're trying to provide more recreation for a very minimal cost to the residents, more recreation. You supported the Lake Club contract, which I know everybody here knows the importance of that to the community and also to our park. I think we're going in a good direction to start providing some more things, and you're starting off at something that is going to provide more recreation up there to a facility that we all agree has been underused, and hopefully will be used more, and hopefully even provide more as our finances get better. But this is just kind of a start, and it's at a very minimal cost. I will move forward with that and go from there. Any other questions from council or any comments related to that? Any comments from our residents? Mr. Harkai, you're more than welcome to come up.
Denny Harkai, Hickory Drive. Question regarding where the intention is to locate a portable basketball court.
Well, as the committee talked about that, on the west side of that area, either the north or south side, I really don't care where it goes in that regard. That's the best location for it now. That's the only location we have right now for $4,000, and we're not going to spend We're not going to spend $4,000. The hoop is a little over $2,000, and Rob can get the markings done for less than $1,000. And I'll talk to Rob, or the mayor can talk to Rob about color of the markings, because we know that racetrack is there, in that, taking up that entire area. So the least obtrusive we can be with color, with overlapping markings and things like that would be better, I think. And that's where it stands right now.
Okay, obviously, you know, I'm not going to agree with that, and there are several other folks who would also not agree with that plan. First of all, I understand you say that you're going to purchase portable basketball courts. I question why you would even think of doing that, since we already have 2 of them. I don't see the need for any more if you already have 2. Why would you need any more?
Mayor, and this is the last hour to respond, because we can go all night on this. The hoop that would be purchased would be a lot more sturdier, weatherproof, more of an outdoor grade than what's up there. The 2 that are up there the 2 that are up there now that the Parkers play next to that house, are something you would buy at Dick's, a residential type, for $200. That's what's up there now. So this would be more sturdy and last a lot longer than what we have.
I just want to make a comment, and Denny, it's not just to you, it's to anybody, and it's to anybody, any other residents who maybe are using the racetrack or using something else. I think they both can coexist. I think that's important that they do. I want you to know that if Rob is instructed to go and lay it out, along with purchasing the court, the operation of the racetrack is on our mind too. Okay? It's about making it a coexistent area so you can use it as a resident, any other residents too. It's not to put one and take away from the other. If that was the objective, then we wouldn't be doing our job. Okay? The objective isn't to say, okay, this is the highest one here, this one has people using it, let's not appreciate those people, let's just move over here. That wouldn't be, I don't think you would have support from this council in that motion if that was the case. I know everybody's character up here. I think their goal is they feel it can, both activities can coexist. And I want to make sure that happens. And I'm hoping you come back and say, Mayor, it's working out okay. Okay? It might not be the same as it was. I mean, everybody kind of, I understand that. But I'm hoping you say, you know what? I'm going to give it a chance. Let's see how it goes. I think the best thing we can all do, and anything we go into, it's kind of like Mr. Jordan says, we got problems, but we got some good problems. We're going to have a big construction site. There's going to be some headaches. But in the end, guess what? It's going to benefit the residents of Walton Hills. So maybe we're going to have to go through some growing pains. And I really want, I can look you right in the eye and say I feel sincerely about that. Okay? I don't want to be part of something that says, okay, well, let's go. And I don't think anybody up here, I know nobody up here wants to be part of that. There's a survey that took place, which the residents drove. I know you were a big person of driving this survey, okay? So we got the survey done. It's no different than a resident saying, well, have a committee. Well, if you have a committee and do nothing with the committee, that's worse than not having a committee at all. It's no different than doing the survey and say, okay, we got the survey now, we're gonna do nothing with it. Well, then that's saying, okay, let's do it again, and then if we get the results we like, maybe we'll do it, but that's not what a survey is about. So you did the survey, the rec committee put time in it, you put time in it, the rec department put time in it, we got the results, and now the committee is saying we're gonna act on it. We're gonna act on it in a small way. I can't wait till we can just go and pave everything and have those things. If our funds were better, you wouldn't be up here. We wouldn't even be having this discussion. It'd be, okay, what contractor do we use to pave get the bids, Rob, we're gonna pave the tennis courts, we're gonna we're gonna put in new basketball courts, we're gonna go down there, look at the racetrack, we're gonna do the batting cages. Maybe we'll even do something like a little one, what do they call those? Tom, you know, they just put one in another community where all the water stuff comes up. But there's a water pad, there's a name, splash pad. I would love to have a small splash pad. God, you drive down in Tinker's Creek and you see that one fountain that just goes up. And I don't think there's a kid in Cuyahoga County that at least didn't run through that once. I know we ran through it once when we were kids. And all it is just a nozzle, straight up.
Yeah?
And you drive by there on Saturday and Sunday and there's little kids. So, and Danny, I'm not taking away, I want you to, you know, give your comments because I think that's important. But I want you to walk away and I don't want you to feel, you know, negative about it. I certainly don't. In fact, you'll probably be up there when a lot of it takes place. Okay, and that's all right. So that's all I'm gonna say. That's where I'm at.
Okay, comments regarding the survey? I've heard it said in this meeting by a council person that there isn't that much faith in the value of these surveys. And I can understand why, because you know what? People can lobby for their cause. Who's to say that survey is even really legitimate? That people didn't go ahead and say, hey, pal, why don't you send one in? And let's get somebody else to send one in. And let's get somebody else to send one in. I don't really believe that you can actually put a good faith. I agree with that. I at first thought a survey was a good idea, but after thinking about it a little more, I really doubt the validity of it. Now, I'll agree that people would like basketball. I also heard a council person say in a meeting that there was fear, after talking to other communities, quite honestly, that basketball courts could be a breeding ground for crime. There's a concern about that. And I know there's a concern about that in other communities. I'll say that about the surveys. In regards to taking a venue that's been there for 10 years, never has caused any problems, has cost the village very little money, that is being used by people, that, by the way, is open now. We just had 2 work parties. The tent covers are all put up. The boards have all been painted on both sides and installed. The awning over the driver's stand is put up. And there's also some nice racing banners that are put up and some flags that have been put up to make it look like a racetrack, because that's what it is. It's a racetrack. And we discussed this before. Every sports venue has markings that are particular to it. You don't see a football field with markings for a baseball diamond, and you really shouldn't see a racetrack with markings for a basketball court. And I believe that if you start trying to use that venue for 2 different activities, you're going to breed some serious conflict. It was said when the question came up before, well, what happens if someone's down there and they're using it for one thing? The answer was, well, it's kind of like waiting your turn for a swing. That can't work, because if there's somebody down there playing basketball, they're not going to want to stop playing basketball. And if somebody wants to use the venue for a racetrack, they're going to have to go home. Or if there's people down there using the racetrack and somebody wants to play basketball, the guys with the racetrack aren't going to leave. I just see that as an ultimate opportunity to breed conflict. It won't be long before the police are there, in my opinion. Why don't we do this? If you're going to approve a budget to do some things to improve recreation here in the village, don't mess up a venue that's already been there, it's working just fine, it looks really good. We could promote that, and I'll tell you what, if we put the one time that you put a message on the marquee about radio control cars on Sunday afternoon, we had 2 new families show up down there with their kids, and everybody had a good time. If we put a notice, like you have yoga in the Journal and yoga in the Owl, and if you put it on that there were radio control cars every Sunday at 1 o'clock, I guarantee you that place would be packed with people. We purposely didn't promote it last year, and you know that as well as I do, because we were worried about COVID. We followed all the rules. We had yellow tapes around things, we social distance, and we kept it low key. I didn't even put the signs out, but there were people down there using that racetrack. We could get people down there doing that if we let them know it's available, and it's a fun activity, people can enjoy it and have a good time. Why not do this? We've got a piece of property that since I've lived in this village, those tennis courts, nothing has been done with them. Why don't we consider taking this budget that you would allocate and using the money to develop that area? Now you've got an area that's what it has been for the past 10 years. You're not messing it up. And in the meantime, you could develop an area that hasn't been developed at all. There's room up there enough. If you don't want to have tennis, there's room enough up there for a couple of pickleball courts. You can put the markings up there. And I'll tell you what, I told you before, I had a nice meeting with Mike Cerna. He offered to do a job for half price as a contribution. If somebody would contact him or another contractor and say, hey, Mike, what would it take to fill these cracks and mark it for pickleball and a tennis court? I'm all for staying within our budget. I mean, you guys are spending our money. Every one of us lives here. You guys are stewards of our money, and I'm all for us being conservative with it. All right? So if we can't afford a $20,000 paving job, okay, let's appropriate $4,000 or $5,000, whatever, and get the job done up on top. Now you have the racetrack, then you can have tennis and pickleball as well without messing something up. I mean, am I the only one that thinks that makes sense? I hope not.
You don't have to look to me. I gave my thing.
yeah.
I have a board here who has asked me to, they want support for me to, as mayor, act and put in a basketball court in make it a multi-purpose area. I'll tell you what, Denny, to be honest with you, I wish you would just open up a little bit. And to say there's gonna be problems, I would never say that, because I'm hoping there won't be. I'm hoping we go into it with an open mind. I'm hoping that maybe a kid that comes down there doing basketball takes an interest in the cars. Or how about a kid that comes down there that is doing the cars and takes an interest in basketball? They're both good things. Or maybe a father says, hey, we're waiting to use the track a little bit or whatever. Let's shoot a couple hoops. Or let's just wait, to have such a separation in a playground, it doesn't have, my opinion, I think it coexists. If we have to call the police up there, then there's an issue. Then there's a serious issue. If we have to call the police for an issue in recreation, you got a serious problem.
I agree.
Got a serious problem. When we played baseball and coached baseball and the police had to come, I was embarrassed. You're coaching little kids. You're supposed to lead a fine example, okay, by good sportsmanship, by adulthood, and the police have to come. If the police have to come up there, shame. Shame, shame, shame. Because before I have an altercation where the police, I'm just going to say, you know what, I'm going to go home. Okay? I'm going to lead by example. Okay? I don't need, so I hope that doesn't happen. And if it does, we'll have to address it, and this body will address it. Because we don't want that. None of us want that. We don't want that. No one's looking to make, and Denny, I could go, and I want you to really feel, I think they both can coexist.
Before we do anything as radical as what's being talked about, which means marking up the racetrack and putting a basketball hoop down there, before we do that, why don't we open up a discussion about what can be done in another location that doesn't take away from one or the other? Can we at least open up the discussion to that and talk about that? I know, and everybody in this room knows that we raised $10,000 to get that racetrack paved several years ago. Okay, it wasn't that hard to do. Everyone in this room except Mr. Whedon contributed. I bet he would have if he was on council at the time, but all of you did, and some of the racers did. You weren't here on council at that time. It was your dad, though, that gave the first $5,000 to make it happen. Why don't we talk about what we can do to develop the venue up on top before we go ahead and do anything this week or next week? to start marking up the racetrack. We just got done putting everything together. It's all open right now. And I'll guarantee you, if we put a thing on the marquee Sunday, there'll be a crowd down there playing with little cars. Can we at least open up the dialogue to make it happen somewhere else rather
Let
than
me,
the racetrack?
this will be my last comment. I sat on that board with Mr. Allen when we approved that, okay? He wasn't alone, it was a group just like this,
Oh, yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you why, okay? We had batting cages down there, right? And you came and approached, right? We didn't keep a closed mind and say, hey, you can't do it because we got batting cages there. We said, guess what? We got batting cages, we got a resident who wants to do something, let's make it multi-purpose. That was the start of it, believe it or not.
That wasn't, Don. The batting cages were not where
There were
the
tennis
racetrack
courts
is.
there.
No, there was a skateboard park there.
Well, the skateboard came after, okay, but either way. So what did we do? We kept the batting cages along with the racetrack.
True.
Okay?
That's
We
true.
didn't say, guess what? You can't do it there, that's the batting cages. We thought, you jogged my thing. We said, let's make it coexist. Okay? And we did that.
The batting
And
cages were here.
Let me finish. I'm not going to debate with you. I'll let you say what you want to say. We also had, and I'm glad you brought it up, we had a skateboard park. Skateboard parks were popular. We had some young residents come to us and say, can we put a skateboard park there? We'd like to have a skateboard park. They were one of the most popular things at the time, okay? And this council, maybe different members, said, just like they are being open-minded now, said, we want more people to use that park. That is our goal. So opened it up, have it. Then that kind of faded away, and the skateboard park went away. It wasn't to say, okay, well, we just agreed on a skateboard park, it has to stay. No, he went with the times. Right now, this is how council feels about it. I feel about the same way. I don't see why they can't coexist. Okay? And I don't see why we can't give it a try.
You can't run race cars with a basketball hoop in the middle of the racetrack. Just can't do it. It won't work. It just won't work. And when the idea first came up about doing this, you had the batting cages, true, and you had the other area, which was tennis courts, which became a skateboard park, true. But then we turned a skateboard park into a racetrack. It wasn't a shared venue. The racetrack became a racetrack and nothing else, and it wasn't shared with anything else. Right now,
And it has to stay that way,
well,
regardless of what the other residents want or whatever. I guess that's,
I would say yes if there were no sensible alternatives. I think we should look into what we can do at another location rather than putting a basketball court on the racetrack. That's what I think. I'd have a hard time believing that you wouldn't agree with that. Especially since you have all that, and then what would you do? Leave that other area totally undeveloped while you go ahead and do this? That doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry to say that, but I don't think it makes any sense. You've got a whole area up here that nobody's using for anything else. Fix that. Take our limited budget and do the best we can with it this year, and then we'll become wealthy because the revenue comes in from the Ford plant and all that other stuff, and the grants come through, and you got 20,000. Fix that area up like a gold mine. But don't ruin something when you don't have to, when it could easily be done somewhere else for a good price.
where I'm at with as mayor, and then you have 5 council members that can either answer your questions or not, and that is, was asked to go through committee, okay? It went through many committees, okay, from what I understand. Okay? Residents wanted to go through committee, council wanted committees, wanted to go through committee, it went through committee. Committee came up with, did a survey, residents asked to do that. This is just me seeing it, okay? Comes to the mayor here, okay? Residents asked for a survey took place. Residents asked for committee meetings for the residents to express their concerns, their ideas, that took place, okay? Now you have the committee, along with their fellow council members, suggesting that asking that a motion take place with the mayor and put the results into action. So my job is to put that in action. If that change that will have to come from this body here.
I'm not disagreeing with putting the plan into action. I'm
So,
disagreeing with what
Denny,
the
I'm just
plan's
telling you
gonna
where
be.
I'm at. So, I'm done, because me and you, we both talked about this many times.
I think everybody's heard it before, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, so it's up to everybody how you want to do it. Denny, if you have any closing comments, or anybody else would like to.
Okay,
any
here's a
comments?
question. The portable basketball court, which is much better than the ones we have right now. The ones we have up there right now, when that base is full of water, weighs 300 pounds. If you don't fill it with water, the wind will blow it over or turn it around. The wind turns it around anyway, even with the base being full of water, and they weigh 300 pounds. So you put a portable basketball court down on the racetrack that weighs 300 pounds, or whatever you're gonna do to put it there. The kids are done playing basketball, what are they gonna do? Leave it there? And then who's gonna move it? A couple of old guys like me and the fellows that race and stuff like that. We're gonna pick up this thing and lift it up over the boards and put it on the side. And then when the kids wanna play basketball, they're gonna come down there and put it up themselves? Come on, that doesn't make any sense.
Mr. Mayor,
You're done.
Yes,
with it, I
Mr.
know.
Spitznagel.
the purpose of that hoop like that is because we didn't want to put a hoop actually in ground. We could put a hoop in ground, but that would mean basically drilling the hole, ruining the asphalt that's there, and installing it in ground. That's why the idea was that surface is left alone. But as far as moving that all around, no, it's going to stay either at the south end or the north end, whatever Rob feels is the best. It's going to stay there. And it's the base of it probably from this dais to the wall. I can't possibly imagine in either the far north or the far south end of that entire space that is going to ruin that racetrack.
Okay.
I can't possibly imagine that. So that's what I'm thinking.
If you can't imagine it, then come down to the racetrack and take a look at yourself what it would take. We just got done putting up all the barriers around the racetrack, and if you're gonna do that, that means every piece of wood that was cut to a specific length to make straightaways and curves would have to be shortened and cut and moved so that this basketball thing doesn't interfere with the racetrack. And I can't believe that you continue to insist on doing something on the racetrack when you could do it somewhere else. I just can't believe that you really want to do that. I'm sorry, but that makes no sense to me at all. No sense at all.
Mr. Mayor, the last word for me is we explored doing it in other places. I had Mr. Kalman, he graciously spent a lot of time looking at costs to do it other places. Significantly more money to do it other places.
Why would it be more money to stick that same
I
thing
am
on the
not
fence
gonna-
upstairs than it is to put it down below?
Don't interrupt each other. I don't want you guys to debate. Don't interrupt.
No, we're not.
You can, go ahead.
The initial idea was to have the pickleball courts down there too, for monetary purposes. I'm not gonna sit here and listen to comments from you, derogatory comments.
You can
Mr.
leave.
Mayor, what?
I said you could leave if you don't want to sit here and listen to it.
I'm not gonna have either one of you debate or say anything negative to each other, just,
The one that's gonna leave is, I'll ask you to call the police. But, Mr. Mayor, we looked at all that stuff. This is just a matter of somebody that just does not want to share that entire space, and that's all it is. And I'm done talking about it. It's at this point, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of, it's a waste of effort. We will make it work. If we need to designate a time, I'm all for designating a time. The racetrack usually runs on Sundays, certain hours. I don't mind designating a time where this is for the racetrack, so they can go on there, use that for the Sunday afternoon or late morning, whatever you do. I don't have any problem with that, but it can work. There's no, they could be playing right now on a beautiful day, if we had that court there. Nobody's running a race car right now.
We just put the track together today. They're running tomorrow.
And
It's all finished.
Mr. Mayor, last meeting, Mr. Harkey came up and asked permission to do that, and nobody gave him permission to do that.
Any other comments from any council members?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We've had special meetings, we've had more than enough time, and we've put in more time than we should have on this. Ray, I have the numbers here for the basketball hoop, 2293 is what it comes, this is, Mr. Spitznagel put all this together. As far as this being used by the racetrack and by kids using it for basketball, we'll just have to put, if it becomes a problem, we'll have to put a sign up and designate hours. That's all, just like, and the thing is that once our Parker program starts, which is gonna be here in June, that'll be used every day. It'll be for the kids. They'll use this up every day. This is something for them. So,
And in the meantime, you're gonna leave that entire area undeveloped. You're not gonna do a thing with it. You're gonna do what you're gonna do on the racetrack. Is that what I understand you're planning to do? You're gonna leave that whole area up on top and do nothing with that, and you're gonna do what you're gonna do with the racetrack. Is that what I understand you're telling me?
I don't know what area you're talking about.
I'm talking about the tennis courts.
We've looked at the tennis courts. We don't have the money to fix them right. If we had the money, we want to put the tennis courts back. We were going to put the tennis courts back where they could use them and put the pickleball courts over top the tennis courts, just like other cities do. We just don't have the money. We don't have the funds. I wasn't on council when the last budget was approved. I've looked at it every which way. We've put hours in on this.
Rob Kelman told me that for $1,000 in material and a couple of days of labor from his crew, they could fill all the cracks on that tennis court up on top with sand and proper sealing, and they could coat it and they could stripe it. So why don't you take the money that you do have and what money you can raise and do it up there instead of on the racetrack?
To fix it, line it, stripe it, make it look right, it's $8,000.
Who gave you that quote?
Rob did.
Yes, and Fred, that's for a tennis court. We're not even talking tennis or pickleball courts.
Yeah, we're not even talking
talking
about that right now. So we've given up on it. We just don't have the money.
But that would be the next thing to address. That was the second highest thing there, basketball, correct?
Correct.
If you look at the survey,
Correct.
would be
Pickleball,
pickleball and
Tennis
tennis.
and pickleball were the next
Yeah.
two on the list.
What I did hear, that if there's issues, we're gonna address them, which I know if there's issues, we'll address them. I'm hoping there is no issues. I'm hoping there is no issues. I hope it coexists and, we can do more as we move forward and our revenue gets, better here, which I think it will. Our budget going forward, we might be talking about doing the, tennis courts and maybe, overlap it with a pickleball. Wouldn't that be nice? One thing we do know, the most important thing on my plate and this council's concern is increasing the revenue. Then it makes these issues very easy when your revenues are certainly exceeding your expenditures. Right now, we're in the black by a couple $100,000. All it would take would be one sewer line break, one large piece of equipment in the service department to take a hit, and there goes that surplus. So it's very important for us to stay focused on our economic development, do as much as we can for our existing residents that we have, try to maintain our existing businesses, and that's what I think this body's trying to do, is to provide more recreation in the summer to all the residents. And I think we got great residents, and I think they're all gonna get along.
Question, for $8,000, exactly what was gonna get done up there for $8,000? Exactly what was gonna get done?
It's gonna fix the cracks and paint it.
Okay.
Paint the
Did that
tennis courts,
include
and
putting a
then-
basketball hoop up there too?
No,
That didn't
no,
include
there's
that.
no-
All right, all right.
No,
All right,
in
let
that
everybody
tiny
finish
area.
their comments. I do have an executive session. We have a council meeting to attend to. I don't mean to cut it off, but this is, we've, the council has addressed it in many meetings. The purpose of a recreation committee is to come to a consensus. The consensus, then they bring it to council, then council brings it to the administration. And that is exactly what has happened here. Am I correct? So, anybody, any other comments related to the other business that we're talking about right now?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Harkeye, you didn't advocate for anybody to put in for a racetrack on those surveys?
Of course I did. And don't you think some people for basketball did the same? I would guess they did. I would guess they did.
Well, shame on all of them then. Shame on yourself if you did. Because what they should have did is put in one survey for each person, and that's it. If they put in more surveys than one, then shame on them. Because I'll tell you what, I didn't do one, but if I would have did one, I would have did one, and my wife would have did one. Because
only did one.
I'll tell you why,
I only
because I
did
want to
one.
be, I want to be respected. I want to be respected as a good, honest man, and I think most of us here want to be respected as good, honest men and women. And so, if anybody did that, anybody listen, shame on them. But they got to live with themselves, but shame on them.
I
'Cause
did,
that's wrong.
I did only one, but I did ask other people to do one as well.
Well,
That's
then,
the truth.
well, if that was their honest opinion,
It was.
that they thought it was
It
better,
They wouldn't have done it.
well,
if
then
they
there's
didn't
nothing
think
wrong
so.
with that.
No, no.
But if
and
they
that's the
did
point.
one
That's the point.
to do it for somebody, and it really wasn't how they felt, well, then shame on them.
Just like anybody campaigning for anything, you try to get people to vote for your side. Yes, I did turn in one, and I asked other people to turn them in, and they did.
I want them to vote for me if they agree with me, or think I'm the
Okay.
best for the job.
Okay.
Not because I owe them something, or I did something for them. That, I don't want. I want them to vote for me because they think I'll do the best for their community or for them. And anybody that put in this, they should have picked what they thought would be the best, or something they like, or something that would benefit the community. So I'm hoping this is a good, honest survey. I believe in our residents. So I disagree. I think you say it's not a good survey. I think it's a good survey. I think what we've all talked about, and I know the Al shared this, the problem with surveys, you got, 2,400 residents, and look how many filled it out.
80.
But that's what the residents advocated for. The committee followed their suggestions, got results, had open meetings, asked for their opinions, and here's where we are right now. Any other question? Denny, you want to follow up with anything?
One more question. Can we please wait to see if we can raise $8,000 or $10,000 before you do anything to the racetrack? I will help you raise the money. I believe that we can find benefactors. In fact, I told you before that I'm willing to donate to getting something done up on top without having to do something on the racetrack. I'm willing to donate. I'll put my skin in the game, which I think is important, to show support for what you're doing. And I think that we could get a contractor to cooperate with us. I think we could get a good job for a good price. And I think we could develop something that's not developed without messing up something that already has been developed and has been no problems for the past 10 years.
And Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Spitznagel.
the top tennis courts have nothing to do with the basketball court. If the idea is to put tennis courts, pickleball courts on top of a tennis court, and a half-court basketball court on top of that, if that's the idea, in a much smaller area than the racetrack, then I don't see the logic in not agreeing or seeing fault in just putting the half-court basketball court in that large area down there by the racetrack. But Mr. Harkive's advocating for putting three things in a much smaller area. I totally disagree with that. That won't work. The $8,000, we're going to see if we can come up with that through the grant for the top tennis courts. Got nothing to do with the basketball court.
Then why not see if we could raise the money for a basketball court where the basketball court was and put a new one in? And wait until we have the money. Does it all have to happen immediately?
I'm just gonna make one suggestion here, and then we're gonna move on to our council meeting. You say, why can't we wait? Why can't we wait to see how it works out? Why can't we do it and see how it works out? What if it works out wonderful?
Okay.
What do you say to that?
If it
Would you
works
be happy if it worked out good?
I'd be thrilled.
Good. Well, then go into it with that attitude, because I will be thrilled too, because that's what we need. If the whole world had that today, let's coexist. Isn't that what everybody's about here? And the council, I'm going to pray for the Ukraine. I'm going to ask council to pray for Ukraine for a minute. You know why? They're fighting over nothing.
Keep in mind that when the kids are down there playing basketball during Parker programs, they'll be a lot more difficult to watch from the pavilion area.
If it goes in a worse direction, I know this council will be the first ones, along with myself, to say, hey, we didn't want it to get worse. We wanted it to get better. How do we fix it? I know that.
Mr.
I
Mayor,
have faith in everybody here.
we have park counselors that stay with the children.
Okay.
Denny, if you want to wrap up anything, council have anything, any residents? It's getting late and
Mr.
I
Mayor,
do, yes.
I would just say too, for some reason, Mr. Harkeye thinks that I'm pro basketball court. My son played basketball in the past. He's going to college and he's got a job. So I don't think my son's worried about, and I'm not concerned about a basketball court there for him.
Any other comments from any council members? Mr. Harkeye, anything else? You wrap it up?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from any residents that are here or any residents that are live streaming?
The only live stream comment we had was from Karen Remming, and it said, for the record, how many Walton Hills residents use that racetrack weekly? That was it.
Yeah, you can tell, just give us the number.
No.
The ones that are come and go, by the way. Denny Harkeye uses it. John Palumbo uses it. Dio Giadas used to use it until he moved away. The Slavey family has used it. The Lee family has used it. The Orland family has used it. You want me to go on? There's plenty of residents that have used it, in case Karen Remy wants to know.
And I hope, and just one comment, I hope they continue to use it. I hope they don't stop just because they have to share, or maybe not even share it just because there's days when other residents are down there. So to all those residents, I hope you continue to use it, and the residents that will use the basketball court, I would say the same thing to them. Work with the people that are using the racetrack, and I'm sure it will go well. We're all neighbors.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I hope they use both.
that would be wonderful.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Brian, can we split the area in half and that way everybody can have their own little spots?
Yeah, I don't think a half-court basketball court takes up half of that.
Tom, don't leave on me.
Yeah,
I don't think a half-court basketball court is gonna take up half that area to begin with.
Well, if they're gonna put striping down there for a half-court basketball court, then have them restripe the racetrack, because that needs to be restriped as well. So I know everybody will have nice, fresh stripes. Is that reasonable?
But see what the,
I don't need it. Don't look at me. I'm not committing to
Is
you
that
in a
reasonable?
meeting like this. This isn't a barter. This isn't a barter. We agree, get something out. This body and myself, we work for council, for all the residents. If we feel that, I'm sure they'll do that, vice versa, and stay within the amount.
Are the stripes gonna be temporary or permanent?
We're probably gonna use paint. I'm not sure, but
That's permanent. So the racetrack will now look like a hodgepodge of racetrack and basketball court. Makes no
Mr.
sense.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Vote on the motion.
Councilman Nielsen.
Yes.
Councilwoman Brenner Miller.
Yes.
Councilwoman Allen.
Yes.
Councilman Spitznagel.
Yes.
Councilman Whedon.
Yes.
Okay, everybody ready for the council meeting?
I do have to switch live streams because we put this meeting after I had two different streams.
Okay.
So we will end this stream, and if there's anybody on, just go ahead and look for the one that said council meeting, all right? I'm gonna do it right now, if anybody